Hello, friends, and thank you for tuning in to our broadcast today. In a few moments, we're going to take you into a live session where Bishop Wayne was teaching a message designed to feed your faith and to elevate your understanding. We invite you to join in as if you were here in person and to light up the chat box with your comments and confirmations. This hour of power is your time to recharge, to renew, and even to reset your mind for a life of purpose, passion, and power. At the end of this message, we have an important announcement for you. So do stay tuned. But now let's go into the hour of power with Bishop Wayne Malcolm.
Kingdom economics describes God's original purpose and plan for global prosperity. And there's two sides to that. There's the purpose, there's the plan. If you're not convicted of the purpose, you're not going to follow through on the plan. So we spend some time just developing our convictions when it comes to God's will, God's design, God's intention for us. And we said some amazing things. So look, if you miss that part, the rest of this series, you might struggle with it because, like I say, if you're not convicted of the purpose, you're not going to follow through on the plan. That's a good point to test my sound effects. So look, if it's your first time on the channel, if you're new to the channel, or if you've not yet subscribed, please do subscribe because we're posting new content every week. And as far as I can see, that's just going to increase and increase and increase because I'm very full right now. I'm trying to empty out, trying to offload, trying to output, trying to share as much as I possibly can. So I want you to go ahead and subscribe to the channel, click the bell for notifications so you know whenever we are broadcasting. And of course, I want you to like the post. If you like the post, please hit the like button. Don't just say, I like it, then just go away. Literally click the like button. It really does help us in terms of, who in the future will be able to see our post. All right. A lot of it's judged based on the number of likes. So please go ahead and like. And I'm also going to ask you to share it. Grab the link, share it with your family, friends, neighbors and networks. Let them know about the Business Bishop, about this great kingdom conversation that's ongoing on my YouTube channel. Tonight, I also want you to utilize the chat box as your virtual voice. So that if we say anything that deeply resonates with you or that constitutes a light bulb moment for you, an epiphany, an eye-opening moment for you, I want you to indicate it in the chat box, light up the chat box with fire emojis, heart emojis, hand clapping emojis, hands raised, any emoji that expresses your emotion, your sentiment, your feeling, or just go ahead and testify and shout your amen in the chat box. Of course, what I'm going to do is utilize my sound effects. And I'm going to utilize those sound effects because these are the sound effects that express how I'm feeling, all right? And of course, if you're feeling that way, I want you to shout it out. I've got some really good news for you at the end of the session, so do stay tuned throughout this session. We're diving in deep tonight because tonight we are taking kingdom economics to a whole nother level. I want to concentrate in this particular month on the plan for global prosperity, the plan for your prosperity as a kingdom agent, as a citizen of the kingdom, as an ambassador of the kingdom. I want to talk about God's plan for your prosperity. We have looked so far at God's purpose for your prosperity. And now we're going to look at the plan, which describes the principles and the practices that actually produce that prosperity. And if you're excited about that, would you shout your amen in the chat box? So tonight I'm going to talk about the parable of the talents, And this is Kingdom Economics 11. If you missed any of the others, you need to go back through my YouTube channel and come to speed with this series. It's an epic series. So here goes. The agenda. I'm going to kick off with some context for the concept. I'm going to talk about the fact that Matthew 25, the parable of the talents, is in fact an end-time parable that has very specific significance to people who are living at the end of the age. I want to talk about stewardship, absence, increase through investing, fear and foolishness, reckoning and promotion. And so let's dive into it. Let's look at the context for this concept. The parable of the talents could otherwise be called the parable of the money. Woo! I feel like I need to air horn that moment. Yeah, the parable of the talents could otherwise be called the parable of the money. Now, I know there are some people that read from the parable of the talents, talk about the parable of the talents, and they liken the talents to the sort of natural giftings that we have, our natural inclinations towards certain crafts or skill sets, and then we call them talents. But actually, a talent at the time of Christ was an economic unit of money. A talent was an economic unit of money. It was actually a weight measure, so that a talent of gold was worth more than a talent of silver. Okay, so it's fundamentally a measurement or an economic unit, and it was a way of measuring metals, primarily the primary metals of the day: gold, silver, bronze. And so a talent of gold would be worth more than a talent of silver worth more than a talent of bronze. So what we have is these talents, and talents were economic units of money. That's why I say that this parable could otherwise be called the parable of the money, because the talent referred to money. So just so we have an idea of how much money was being discussed here, the talent was approximately 75 pounds or 34 kilograms. 75 pounds or 34 kilograms. That's what a talent, the weight measurement of a talent was. In today's money, a talent of gold would be worth the 34 kilograms, which is 34,000 grams, times $60, which is today's approximate value of gold. So a gram of gold is valued at the moment at about $60. So 34,000 grams times $60 equals over $2 million. So a talent was the equivalent, today's equivalent, of $2 million. And so this was not a parable about a rich man giving, a little bit of money to this one, a little bit more money to this one, a little bit more money to this one. These are serious sums. These are absolutely serious sums. I mean, if somebody gave you $2 million to look after, that's a seriously wealthy individual, and that's a serious sum, not to be taken lightly. Now, what I want to share with you tonight is that this parable reveals the secrets of kingdom economics and of financial stewardship. So we're going to start to extract from the parable tonight some mysteries of the kingdom, some of the secrets of kingdom economics, and we're going to learn how to become better financial stewards, because financial stewardship is the essence of the parable. Woo! So the second thing I want you to notice about this parable is that it is an end-time parable. Because Matthew 25 is in fact a continuation of the sermon that Jesus began in Matthew 24. Now in Matthew 24, Jesus made a comment and was asked a question as a result of the comment. And his sermon, his teaching in Matthew 24 is an answer to the question. The comment he made was that the temple in Jerusalem would imminently be destroyed, such that there would not be one stone left upon another that would not be cast down. He equally predicted the destruction of Jerusalem. And of course, at the time when he said this, the temple was very beautiful. It had been refurbished by King Herod. Some people thought of it as Herod's temple, but it had been refurbished. It was beautiful. It was the centerpiece. It was the landmark for Jerusalem. And Jesus was predicting its imminent destruction. He also predicted the destruction of Jerusalem. And so his disciples said, well, Lord, tell us, when will these things be? What will be the sign of your coming and of the end of the age? And so Matthew 24 is Jesus answering those questions. What would be, when these things would be, what would be the sign of his coming, and when would the end of the age be, or what would the sign be of the end of the age? So he proceeds to talk about wars and rumors of war, nation against nation, kingdom against kingdom, famines, pestilence, earthquakes in diverse places, false Christs and deceivers. He talks about all of this division, and yet he says all of these things are the beginnings of a process. Okay, they are the beginning of sorrows. And then he pinpoints the actual sign of the end of the age. He says that this gospel of the kingdom will be preached in all the world for a witness to every nation, then shall the end come. In other words, the gospel of the kingdom and the preaching of the gospel of the kingdom is the sign that we are at the end of the age. And it's interesting to note that we are living at a time when the gospel of the kingdom is being proclaimed and declared like never before. We are recovering, we are recapturing, and we are preaching and teaching the gospel of the kingdom and the principles of the kingdom like never before, and that is a major sign of the times. It's more of a sign of the times than is wars and rumors of wars and nation against nation and famine and pestilence and earthquakes and deceivers and false Christs. Because Jesus said all of these things are the beginning. He said, don't even be troubled, the end is not yet. But when he comes to this kingdom piece, he says the gospel of the kingdom will be preached in every nation, preached in all the world for a witness to every nation, and then shall the end come. Well, the important thing to note is that Matthew 25 is the conclusion of his sermon in Matthew 24. So that those of you who have an old-fashioned printed red letter edition of the Bible, and the red letter edition is where the words of Christ are in red and everything else is in black. Well, you will notice in your red letter edition that there is no black ink between Matthew 24 and 25, which means that this was the exact same speech, this was the exact same conversation, this was the exact same sermon and session, so that Matthew 25 with its three parables is the way Jesus concludes his conversation about the end of the age. And there are three parables that I call end time parables. They're the parables of the 10 virgins, the parable of the talents, and the parable of the sheep and the goats. They're all end time parables, and they're all speaking about the end of the age. So we who live in the end of the age should pay special attention to the mysteries and the secrets that are embedded in the parable, and in these parables specifically, because they are very specifically speaking to us. Now, they have spoken to every generation of believers since they were spoken, but they are very specifically speaking to us who are in this global transition, who are witnessing the end of the era, the dawn and the birth of a new age. There is a very specific attention that we should pay to these end time parables. And here's what I want to say, that as you study the parable of the talents, the parable of the money, the parable of the kingdom economics, you're going to notice that there are 7 economic principles revealed in this parable. 7 economic principles revealed in this parable as follows. So principle number 1 is the principle of stewardship. Stewardship. And stewardship is a position of trust because it involves managing someone else's estate or goods. Stewardship a steward is a position of trust in which you get to manage someone else's property, someone else's estate, someone else's money, someone else's goods. As a steward, you realize that you are not the owner, but that you are the manager. You are not the owner, but you do have authority to make decisions about how these resources are utilized, spent, or invested. So stewardship is a very, very important kingdom principle when it comes to kingdom economics. Because the key to kingdom economics is to realize that we are called to steward the wealth transfer and never to own it. I wish I had some help in here. So, of course, if you follow my ministry, I believe that the wealth transfer has begun. I believe that the wealth transfer is happening. I believe that it is time for believers to position themselves on the right side of the wealth transfer, because heaven has a vested interest in your economic success, in the creation of wealth that is managed and stewarded by you. And so it's very important that we get out of the ownership mindset and into the stewardship mindset. Because whatever you own, of course, you are free to deal with as you choose, as you feel. But whatever is entrusted to you, then you have to start with the will, the instructions, and the agenda of the one who entrusted you with those goods. And so, of course, do what you like with your money, but you can't do what you like with God's money. You have to start with a consultation that says, God, what is your plan? What is your idea? What is your will? What is your intent? What is your agenda? What do you expect from me? And what do you expect me to hand over to you when my stewardship is complete? Stewardship is the key to kingdom economics. Now, guess what? And I'm going to save this perhaps for a future episode, but the super rich already understand the principle of stewardship over ownership. Woo and wow. Yeah, the super rich already know this, that stewardship is a better position than ownership. And this is why they structure their finances such that they own nothing but control everything. Now, when you look at the financial structure, the corporate financial structure of the super rich, you will see that they hold very few assets in their own personal name. It will be held by companies and corporations and living trusts and other vehicles, so that they technically own nothing, but they are in control of everything. Own nothing, control everything. Actually, that's a kingdom principle, and we'll go back to, we'll address that in future sessions. But this was the truth for the servants who had been entrusted with their master's money. They didn't own the money, but they were entrusted with management and stewardship over it. And it's very important that you and I, if we're really going to tap into the wealth transfer that God has ordained and appointed for our generation, that we get out of the ownership mindset and into the stewardship mindset, because whatever you own, you're free to do with what you like. But whatever is entrusted to you, you have to keep the trust of the one who entrusted it to you. The second principle is the principle of absence. So some of you are already wondering, why have you got a holiday picture in the slide? Well, I'm going to break it down, because the principle of absence simply in this parable starts here. The master, that's the rich man, expected to make money in his own absence. Oh, wow. And this is only possible through investing. In other words, by entrusting his employees, his stewards, with the opportunity to invest and trade his money, he put his money to work and he went off on business and was in a far country for a significant period of time. But he left expecting fully to make money in his absence and to have more money upon his return than he did when he left. Now, this is the kingdom mindset. This is a kingdom principle, and one of the principles that lead to a practice that produces prosperity. And it is the knowledge that actually you are to put your money to work so that it is working for you in your absence. And in your absence means while you're sleeping, while you are attending to other business, while you are doing other works of ministry, or while you are on vacation, your money is supposed to be multiplying whatever you are doing. That is a kingdom principle. How many of you would like to know that while you sleep, while you are on vacation, while you are attending to ministry or attending to business in another country, your money is still working for you and growing for you, and you are making that money even while you sleep? Shout your amen. Well, it starts off with a kingdom mindset. And it's the mindset of understanding that money is a great servant, but it is a terrible master. Money was not supposed to be your master. Jesus said you cannot serve God and money. No one can serve two masters. So if you're working for money, then money is your master. But if money works for you, then money is your servant. The key is in making the money your servant and refusing for it to be your master. Your money should grow in your absence while you sleep or while you're on vacation. And you need a mindset that says, okay, look, I've made some money. How can this grow in my absence? Because that's kingdom mindset. That's the mindset of the king of the kingdom, of the kings that are in the kingdom. We want our money to be multiplying and increasing while we're sleeping, while we're attending to ministry or attending to other business. We want our money to be multiplying. All right, principle number 3 is the principle of risk. Because there was a risk involved in trading the money, in investing the money. And it is the wicked and lazy servant with the one talent who put it in a hole, who addressed the fact that there's a risk. As far as he was concerned, there was a risk that he would lose the money. And for that reason, he wanted to maintain the money so that at the very least he could give back to his master. He could give back to his master what his master gave to him. Jesus said, you're lazy and you're wicked and you're fired. You're lazy, you're wicked, and you're fired. Because he understood his master's expectations. See, you can do that with your money, but you can't do that with your master's money. Because he gave it to you in the expectation or with the commission that you would invest it and trade with it and seek to make more. The problem is that there's a risk. And fear dominated this one servant to where he went the road of the least possible risk. So let me say something about that. In this parable, the winners took risks. Everyone who won, they took risks. But the losers took none. And you get to decide, are you going to be a winner and a loser? It's important to know that the winners do take risks and the losers don't take any. So there's no point saying I'm going to be a winner if you're not actually taking a risk. Because the only way to actually win is to take a certain kind of a risk. The truth is that you will miss 100% of the shots you never take. If you never take the shot, you will never hit the goal. Failure is in fact proof that you tried. It is also the path to success. We actually fail forward. We learn from our mistakes and we grow wiser. And we, by attempting, by trying, we enter this process of eliminating what does not work until we arrive at what does work. And that's how people win in life and in business, is they have the courage to continue and to fail forward. I believe it's Winston Churchill who's credited with the saying that success belongs to those who can fail over and over again without losing their enthusiasm. See, what the wicked servant, failed to see is that optimism, enthusiasm, courage, conviction, and faith are really important if you're going to invest. But if you're negative, you become your own worst enemy and you talk yourself out of a big opportunity. I'm speaking to someone today who needs to stop talking yourself out of your next big opportunity and instead begin to believe that the best is yet to come, that your latter will be greater, and that there is victory, that you are on the verge of victory and the brink of a breakthrough. Those of you that feel that way need to light up the chat box. But there are three types of risk involved. Risk number one is the risk of no risk. The risk of no risk. And that was the risk that the wicked, lazy, and unemployed servant took. Not taking a risk almost sounds like a form of security, but that's a lie, because there is a big risk involved in not taking a risk. Okay? And the risk of, not investing is risky business. Not putting your money to work is risky business because you risk losing it. And the probability of financial defeat is very high for people who do not take a financial risk. Now, I want to qualify the risk because there are two other types of risk. There is, number one, the reckless risk. The reckless risk. This means acting without intelligence. Now, look, if you are going to invest or trade without intelligence, you are taking a reckless risk. If you're going to put your money into a vehicle, into an opportunity, into a promise, into a possibility without thoroughly investigating that, understanding the field, understanding what the risk is and how you might mitigate that risk, you are taking a reckless risk. And it is essentially gambling while hoping for the best. I don't think God wants us to be gamblers, hoping for the best, taking reckless risks. Because there's another kind of a risk. It's called a calculated risk. A calculated risk. This is risk based on intelligence, where you investigate before you invest. Very important that you investigate before you invest, and that you gather intelligence before you invest. We saw Joshua do this when he sent spies into the promised land. Or when Joshua, in fact, went as a spy into the promised land, and was able to see what was available and where the risk was. Now, of course, when Joshua and Caleb told Moses and the crowd, where the opportunity was and what the risk looked like, the crowd opted to avoid the opportunity altogether. And, according to the Bible, that was a huge mistake. It was a huge mistake. And it was called a wicked report, because really there was no risk to Joshua and Caleb, because God was on their side. So whatever the odds were stacked against them, God was always greater than the obstacle. God behind them was greater than the obstacle before them. They didn't have faith. They talked themselves out of a big opportunity, and as a result, spent 40 years going around in circles, waiting until that unbelieving generation died out and a new generation rose up that said, look, here's a land of opportunity for us. We know what the risks are. We've calculated the risk, we can mitigate the risk, but we're going to move forward in order to get our reward, because there's no reward without the risk. And I feel like today, help me now, Jesus, that there's a new generation rising who are not prepared to talk themselves out of your next opportunity. You're not prepared to become your own worst enemy with self-limiting, self-sabotaging, and self-defeating beliefs that hold you back from taking calculated risks in order to achieve a kingdom reward. And if you're one of those people, scream in the chat box. Principle number 4 is you increase through investing. You know, you will never get rich by working. Lord, help me now. I'm going to say it again. You will never get rich by working. You can only get rich through investing. I'm going to say it again. You cannot get rich through working because you don't have enough hours in the day. You don't have enough days in a month. You don't have enough months in a year. You don't have enough years in a lifetime. You can only get rich through investing. Now, let me explain what I mean by investing. I mean, investing means putting your money to work. You literally have to put your money to work. You can work to earn some money, but if you will become rich, it will not be the result of how much money you can make by working. If you become rich, it will not be because of how much money you make. It will be because of what you make with the money. It will not be how much money you can make. It will be what you can make with the money. Investing means putting your money to work. It's how we make money our servant and not our master. See, if you're going to get rich through working, then you are going to make money your master because you're fundamentally working for money. But see, if you put the money to work, God can be your master. Your assignment can be your master. The kingdom agenda can be your master. Okay? Your purpose and destiny can be a master. But under God, but money is not your master because you don't work for it. It works for you. When you invest, you are planting seed in the hope of a harvest. You are farming. You are practicing the principles of agriculture, seed, time, and harvest. When you invest, you are planting financial seed in the hope of a harvest. You are, number 3, lending to others at an agreed interest rate or a rate of return. Depending on the type of investment that you're making, you are fundamentally lending to others at an agreed rate of return. That's investing. You're putting your money to work. You're saying, look, you don't have enough money. Here's some of my money. Go ahead and do the work that I've done the investigations on. I've got intelligence on. I feel like this work you're doing is going to make a lot of money for you. I'm going to help you to make that money. And here is an agreed rate of return, an interest rate. That's you're investing. Number 4, you are enabling production, construction, and the invention for a share of the profits. So when you invest in company stocks, which is not the only thing I think that we can invest in, but if you're investing in company stocks, what are you doing? You're enabling production, construction, and invention, and you're doing it for a share of the profits. You're buying a slice of the pie, a slice of the action. If as a result of your investment, there is more production, there is more construction, there is more invention, there is more profits, then you get what you put in plus. So a kingdom principle is investing to increase through investing. The kingdom mindset and the end time mindset is to say, look, how can I put the money to work so that it's multiplying in my absence? I wish I had some help in here. Let's talk about fear and faithlessness. We must not confuse management with maintenance. Woo! Don't confuse management with maintenance. The maintenance mindset is the enemy of your prosperity. Now we see this in the parable where the wicked and lazy servant says, look, I just don't want to look. I don't think I can make any more. I don't think I can multiply this money. So I'm going to maintain this money and I'm going to try to keep it intact. That's maintenance. A lot of people think that management is maintenance. So all they're doing is keeping things the way they are. But stewardship as a form of management is not about managing things as they are, but managing the process that takes them where they need to be. Actually, you're supposed to be stewarding the growth of the treasure chest in the kingdom. You're supposed to be stewarding the growth of the kingdom, of the king's treasury. You're supposed to be stewarding an agenda, managing progress, not managing stagnation. So the maintenance mindset is the enemy of your prosperity. The break-even mindset, the try to save yourself from losses, that is a demonic intrusion and invasion of your spiritual mind. It is a carnality that is at war with your spiritual mind, because your spiritual mind is seeking for increase, overflow, abundance, expansion. But the carnal mind is so full of fear, it literally says, just slip into maintenance mode and try not to lose. It's a difference between trying to win and trying not to lose. We see it sometimes in the sport arena, where people are not playing to win. They're playing to not lose. And it's a very different game with different energy. Matthew 25:24-25 reads, "He also who had received the 1 talent came forward, saying, Master, I knew you to be a hard man, reaping where you did not sow and gathering where you scattered no seed. So I was afraid, fear, and I went and hid your talent in the ground," which meant you dug a hole. You dug a hole. Here you have what is yours. Well, of course, Jesus rebuked him. Jesus fired him, or the master rebuked him. Of course, represents Christ in the parable. Rebuked him, fired him, told them to cast him into outer darkness where there will be weeping and the gnashing of teeth. Because that is fear. Whatever is not of faith is sin in the kingdom. Whatever is not of faith is sin. If you want to understand sin in the new covenant, it is unbelief. And any expression of unbelief is sin. Romans specifically says, whatever is not of faith is sin. Salvation comes by faith in the gospel of Jesus Christ, in the person and work of Christ. So if faith is the key to salvation, then what is the key to destruction? It's unbelief. And once you claim to be a steward, an agent of the kingdom, and you're going to handle God's money with unbelief, with pessimism, with negativity, with a self-defeating outlook, you need to step aside for someone who has some faith, some courage, some enthusiasm, some optimism, and someone that's willing to investigate before they invest, gather the necessary intelligence, and take calculated risks in order to multiply the money. Number 6 is reckoning, the principle of reckoning. This principle means that you should constantly calculate the effectiveness of your financial strategy. Constantly calculate the effectiveness of your financial strategy. Those who did well, the 2 in the parable, 5 talents, 2 talents, they knew what they had gained through trading. They reported to the master. This means that they kept their own records. Notice Matthew 25, verse 20. "And he who had received the 5 talents came forward, bringing 5 talents more, saying, Master, you delivered to me 5 talents. Here I have made 5 talents more." In other words, he is the one that told his master, this is what I've made. Well, if you're going to tell your master what you made, it's because you first sat down and looked at exactly what you've made, and you know what you've made. Now, 5 talents is not 5 pieces, because the talent is a measure of weight. Is a weight of measure. And if it was a talent of gold, then actually You got a big bag that's full of gold. So he's going to count it all out. He's going to count it. He's going to measure it. So you want to do your own reckoning. You want to keep your eyes on your money. You want to be, you want to take stock, take account. Don't take your eye off the ball. Watch your investments. Make sure that your investments are increasing. Take action quickly if something is going left, south, however your colloquial vernacular says it. But that principle of reckoning, accountability, and tight management is really important. And even the principle of frugality, being frugal with your money and taking stock of what it's cost versus what you've gained. What should it profit a man if he gain but lose? Profit, loss, gain, the language of economics. It's the mindset of the kingdom. Profit, loss, gain. And it's an important principle of kingdom economics and financial stewardship. And finally, is the principle of promotion. Matthew 25, verse 21, his master said to him, "Well done, good and faithful servant. You've been faithful over a little. I will set you over much. Enter into the joy of your master." See, once you prove that you can handle a little, God will give you more. Wow and wow, I need to say that again. Once you prove that you can handle little, God will give you more. Instead of saying, well, if I had more money, I could start to do this. No, you're going to start where you are with what you have. So, if I had $2 million to invest, then I could make something of it. I've only got $200 of disposable income right now. Start where you are with what you've got. Someone said, I've only got $20 of disposable income right now. Start where you are with what you've got. Because why would God give you $2,000, $2 million, if actually you've demonstrated poor stewardship with 200 or with 20? The key is understanding that your increase is going to reflect your ability. So, your financial increase is always linked to your financial ability. Increase your ability and God will increase his investment in you. Because there's a reason why he gave to one 5 talents, to another 2 talents, to another 1 talent. And the Bible says he gave to every man according to his ability. Which means his master knew the capacity of each of his servants and said, look, you've kind of done pretty well with what you've had in the past. I'm going to give you 5 talents. You've done pretty well with what you've had in the past. I'll give you 2 talents. You're kind of, you've got potential, but it's not proven. So I'm going to give you 1 talent. And so sometimes God will give you a possibility, even though you're not proven, but that's your opportunity to prove your worth to the treasury in the kingdom of God. And I think this is so exciting that this parable of the talents has embedded within it the principles of kingdom economics, the principles and the practices that produce prosperity, and that it is an absolute handbook on the essence of great financial stewardship. There is so much more we could say about this, but there's so much more I need to say in this series. So you're going to have to stay tuned and tune in for the next installment of Kingdom Economics, where we can take this conversation to a whole new level.
The Spirit-led Business Challenge was epic. The great news is that we're doing it again. From October 28th to the 31st, a group of no more than 12 entrepreneurs with big dreams and legacy goals will gather for a transformational experience. For 1 hour a day over 4 days, I'll coach and train you live on how to build a business that truly partners with God. You'll learn how to cut a success covenant with God, read the biblical blueprints for business success, access your spiritual intelligence, discover God's guide to purpose-driven prosperity. It's live, practical, and interactive with answers to your real questions. Spaces are limited and it's strictly first come, first serve. And for those who secure their spot, I'm including a powerful bonus, my full spiritual intelligence course worth $1,000 completely free. This is your invitation. Don't miss it. Click the link and register today before it's too late. Hey, I'm Bishop Wayne Malcolm, author, coach, and founder of the Epic Kingdom Network. If you've ever felt like something's missing in what you've been taught about Christianity, you're not wrong. Most of us were taught that heaven and the hereafter are the goal, prize, and sole objective of the faith. But the original message of Christ taught us to engage, to influence, and to transform the world. Believe it or not, Jesus didn't die to get us into heaven. He died to get heaven into us, and then through us into the earth. What if I told you that Christianity was never meant to be a religion, but rather a relationship and a global revolution, a divine intervention, not a man-made institution? The original message and mission of Christ was hijacked, diluted, distorted, and replaced with a religion. My new ebook, Kingdom Theology for Kingdom Citizens, is not just another devotional, it's a call to action. A bold reintroduction to the original message of Christ, a message of dominion, not escapism, of transformation, not tradition. You'll learn what it means to rule and reign with Christ, to steward wealth with purpose, to influence government, education, culture, and business as an ambassador of heaven. This book will shift your lens, stir your spirit, and set you on course with divine clarity. And right now, for a limited time, I'm giving you free access to the digital and audiobook versions. No cost, no catch. Just click the link in the description, grab your copy, and step into clarity.
Hey there, entrepreneurs! If you enjoy the teachings of Bishop Wayne Malcolm, I've got something amazing for you. Introducing the New Breed Community, an exclusive online platform for kingdom-conscious entrepreneurs, professionals, investors, and creators. This isn't just a community, it's a movement where we discuss and explore kingdom concepts. Here, kingdom-minded people connect, share, learn, and grow together. Inside, you'll find exclusive content from Bishop Wayne Malcolm, including special sessions just for members. And the best part? It's free to join. The New Breed Community sits on the Heartbeat platform, where Bishop Wayne Malcolm is excited to meet you online. Join us for weekly Q&A sessions with Bishop Wayne, and get exclusive insights that can transform your life. Love to read? Join our book club to feed your mind and spirit. Got a prayer request? Post it and let's lift each other up. Have a testimony? Share how God's goodness is shining in your life. We're more than just a community, we're a movement. Discover the powerful relationship between your profession and your purpose. Join us now on the Heartbeat platform. Connect with us and let's grow together. Bishop Wayne Malcolm and the New Breed Community are waiting for you. So what are you waiting for? Hit that join button and step into a world of connection and growth. A warm welcome awaits you. See you on the inside.